May the light of Aether guide your way in this episode of Hunters in Prime. I am your co-host Wyatt, and who is here with me today?
Once again, it is a bounty hunter, Isaac, Dashpoint, Huxtable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about the second game in the Metroid Prime series. That's right, we're talking about Metroid Prime 2, baby.
Echoes.
Yes,
Echoes.
This is going to be an interesting game to talk about because it has kind of a weird legacy. Maybe like the weirdest of the three games, because when it came out in like definitely like early on the internet, it was seen as kind of like a black sheep game. And especially I would say in the time after the trilogy wrapped up, but before, I don't know, like before like nostalgia like warped back around on it, it was seen as like maybe even a straight up bad game by people like reviewing it retrospectively. But now it's seen kind of a renaissance and has sort of like flipped back around. And I would say I've seen a lot of people who consider this to be not just the best Metroid Prime game, but like the best Metroid game. So before we like get too deep into it, Isaac, I want to know like what is your like first impression thoughts on this game that we can flesh out as we go through the full podcast.
So before I get to that, I want to talk about my weird history of Prime 2, which is very minimal yet very weird, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember, this is weird, I was in like 5th grade. I was like 10, 11 years old. I had played Prime a lot at this point. Still had never beat it. Got nowhere near close beating it. And I was at a baseball game for a field trip. And I was talking to this kid. And he goes, "I got Prime 2." And I was like, "Yeah?" He goes, "But I don't want it anymore. Do you want it?" I went, "Yeah, I want it." And then like a few days later, he just gave me the disc. It's kind of beat up, but it worked and all that stuff. But my issue was that even back then I was like, well, I gotta beat the first game first. And since I never beat the first game, I never played Prime 2. Except for the multiplayer. Because this is... Baby. I thought Prime 3 had it as well. But no, this is the only Metroid Prime game with multiplayer at this point. For the consoles. And so I remember playing that with friends and being like, this is kind of cool. It's weird like beam stuff. What the fuck's an Annihilator? I don't know. But maybe I'll find out when I play the game. And then something weird happened, right? After beating Prime 1 for the first time, back when I graduated in high school, I went straight to Prime 2. And I didn't click with it. I got about 2 hours in. In fact, I boot up my save again from that point, where I was like, how far did I get? I was in the first time you go into the... I was still in Agon Waste, where you go into the Space Pirate base, right? Pretty fucking early... and all that shit. I haven't even fought the boss there yet. And so I gave up on it. I don't know why. And for a while I was like, man, Metroid Prime 2 just didn't click for me. So I was kind of worried going into this. But as we'll go on, I'm just going to say my first opinion so far for the whole game. I think I like it more than Prime 1.
That's such a... I feel like this is such a common opinion now that... And there's days where I feel the same, for sure. Because, for me, back when it came out, like, I was a little bit too young. Like, I'm... You know, I was born in 95. So, I was like 9 years old or whatever when this game came out. And I think I was still just a little bit too young to understand... fully like the hype and release cycle of games, and also games like release dates and things were less set in stone. So like, you know, I got Prime like 2003 or whatever, and I played that and enjoyed it, and then it wasn't too long after that Prime 2 came out, and that's actually like a super interesting part and a very like mysterious part of its development is the fact that took a very short time to develop, and there was reports from people at Retro that like 2/3 of the game, basically, like the majority of the game was completed within a 9-month stretch of time.
God damn.
But this was originally reported as a way to be like, oh, there was like a ton of crunch, you know, in the game. But the people working there, like there were interviews like after the fact, you know, when they no longer worked at Retro, they're like, no, they like Prime 2, they eliminated the crunch. Like it was really bad in Prime 1 because of the fucking Spengenberg, whatever the hell that guy is.
Yeah.
Just like being a bad guy running the company. Then he got ousted. Then they had to like finish the game. But like apparently Prime 2, like very little crunch going on, even though it was a super quick turnaround. And the fact that it was like a game where they went into it trying to make like a radically different game from the first game, and then ended up making one that was just sort of an iterative sequel to the first. I don't know how much you know about like the Metroid Metroid Prime 1.5, like that version of it.
I do not know about that.
Okay, so I'll get into a little bit like later, but just to finish my story here is that, you know, I first found out about Prime 2 from like the demo. That would be like the demo kiosks and stuff like that at like EB Games or Walmart or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like immediately like, oh my god, there's Metroid Prime 2, and it's like, oh, you had the dark and light beam, oh, that's sick. Basically like the demo kiosk was like the disc that would come with the like later version of Prime 1.
Yeah.
How it came like a demo disc of Prime 2. Which I want to get a copy of that at some point, just because
Me too.
Yeah, because I want to have like, I don't know, I have Hunters and First Hunt, you know, as like separate, like I have both, just to be like, yeah, why not? Just own the weird demo cartridge of it as well. But I was like super hyped because Prime was my favorite game, still is, and it was a new game, like it was a new game in that series, and like when it came out, like I got it on like a month later, like at Christmas, and that it was just it was like the most magical like present I could have gotten, and like playing it and everything, like that whole, it's you know, I can still like remember the joy of being like 9 years old and like playing that game like into the night, like into like midnight. Oh my god, I'm staying up so late playing this game, and just like the beginning portions of it and feeling like, I don't know, you ever play a game and you're so excited for it when you play it the first time that every other time you play it you can still sort of like trace the path of like where your mind was when you were playing it the first time? Does that make sense?
No, I had that experience with like I've had that experience even with games I don't like that much, or at least have like kind of some negative feelings towards. Like I have that feeling every time I play Star Fox Zero.
Yeah.
I have that feeling every time I play Breath of the Wild, or basically any of the year one Switch games.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that. Or even a little bit Resident Evil 4 with the first like area of the game with like the house stuff. I played that game when I was like fucking 5 years old because my fucking brother rented it. I was like, I want to try it. I shouldn't have, but I still remember a little bit being like eluded by it. So yeah, no, I totally get what you're talking about there.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was just like I think I grew super attached to the game because it was newer than Prime 1. But then when, like, I'll talk about this in the Prime 3 episode, but like when that game came out, and trust me, it was the greatest day of my life when that game came out. But like by the time that I beat the game, I had that feeling of like, this was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as Metroid Prime 2. Which continues to be true, like to this day. Like I sincerely doubt that replaying it will I'll change and be like, actually Metroid Prime 3 is the best one. Like I love it, don't get me wrong, but it does have like fundamental issues like in its game design that I feel like drag it down. Whereas like, yeah, Prime 2, like there was a time in my life where I would consider Prime 2 the best one, my favorite one. like the greatest game of all time, all that stuff. It wasn't until I like got on the internet, and it was kind of like post Other M, people sort of like dogging on, going back through like Metroid and sort of like trying to canonize certain games or say like, actually the only good one is Super Metroid and like the Fusion and the Prime games are like bad.
Stupid.
Then I started to like alter my viewpoint to conform more to that and be like, yeah, Prime 2 actually isn't that good, really. I used to love it, but it's like really annoying and it has these really hard bosses for no reason and blah blah blah. But then like, more time passed and I grow mature and I enter my 20s and everything like that, and I realize the best opinions that you can have is like, fuck everybody, I got mine. Like that's the best, that's the way that you have to treat like media that you love, is truly just being like, screw everybody else, who cares what they think. Like if you enjoy something, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then that brought back up Prime 2 into the contention, and then it sort of made me realize how much more I love, like how much of the Metroid series I love is in Prime 2, like more so than in like 1 or 3. And that's where I'm saying, where it's like, depending on the day, I could definitely like see myself being like, this is the best one. But that's like, that's the just the setup or whatever. I do want to talk about real quick, just as a trivia thing, to the 1.5 version. And again, people, I might get some facts wrong, so just go look it up on yourself. There's some good YouTube videos out there going over the stuff. But like, it was.
We may seem smart, but we are not the bastions of information.
But it was. Like I believe 1.5 was reworked in a lot of ways to become hunters, because this premise is very similar, where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of bounty hunters, including Samus, are like lured to a single location by a distress beacon, and then it's like a gigantic spaceship, like space station kind of thing, similar to like Fusion, but it's being controlled by like a rogue AI, like a Shodan type.
Oh hell yeah!
Like AI thing, but it has like multiple personalities. It has like 3 or 4 like personalities that it will like shift randomly through, and there's like a like a kind and motherly one, and like a cruel father, and then like a psychopath child, and things like that. Like, but it was like a horror game. They're essentially just trying to make it like System Shock or whatever. And it was a lot of cool ideas, and the other bounty hunters were like, oh, here's this guy who is a human fused with a Metroid called the Metroid, and like that's things like that. Like there's a bunch of like very stupid bunch of weird shit in that. And then and there's still some of the concept art still exists. Like you can like look through the galleries on Prime 2, like when you unlock stuff, and you can still see concept art from that. And like eventually, they kind of just went with what I think is like a less ambitious but still overall better option with the story about Aether and Light and Dark Aether and everything. But that's just like one of those things where I'm like, I don't know, Nintendo is very weird, where they never, like, no matter how bad an idea is, they never let it like die or like stay fallow forever. So they sort of just like, even like canceled games, like it's weird to think about, but they probably only re-released Star Fox 2 because of Zero, right?
Yeah.
Like that coming out, and that had similar elements to Star Fox 2, like reused elements and everything. And then they're like, okay, now that that's like, I believe the Super Nintendo Mini was that like 2018 or 2017? Yeah, so it was a year after Star Fox Zero. So like, and that was like a very strange, like, what? this is included in here? But it was super cool because, we'd known for a while that the game was like basically done, and they could have released it, but it was just too late on the Super Nintendo. It wouldn't have like made sense to release it. So
Yeah.
like, good thing that we got it at some point though, because it is like an interesting game.
Yeah, interesting game. Off the side, I think is better than the first Star Fox.
That is probably true, just because the first Star Fox is pretty simple. You know,
It's
it is
good,
like
but
an arcadey shooter.
It's also hard.
Yeah. But okay. I don't know how we're gonna. We can. Here's the thing with Prime 2 is that like with Prime 1, I was just like effusively gushing about the game the entire time.
Yeah.
It just like naturally led to stuff to talk about. I don't necessarily want to like just go and like recap the whole game, but similar to that, we can kind of just go like area by area or whatever.
Yeah, we won't like recap the whole game, but I think we should definitely talk like kind of piecemeal area by area, especially because of my like I'm gonna go into a little bit, but I definitely had a gradual like feeling towards this game because at first I was kind of unsure about it, right? Because when the game starts, right, you fucking you're responding to another distress beacon with the fucking Galactic Federation. You know, they're having issues on this planet. Go check it out, Miss Aaron. And you check it out, shit goes wrong, you end up meeting Dark Samus, the fucking the motherfucker from the secret ending of Prime.
Yeah.
And you end up being like teleported into a dark world where you lose all your powers. And then come out, and you're kind of the game has started at that point. And
that whole section is like a cool. It's this very similar to the space pirate frigate in Prime 1, but instead of being like, you know, chaos is breaking out around you, like you go in there and you're like, oh shit, things went wrong and are continuing to go wrong. This is like, things have been like, it's dead, like all the chaos is gone, and you're just like investigating the aftermath. Then the zombies start to appear, and that's like that. I think there definitely are still, they're taking that the horror elements that they probably had for Prime 1.5, you know, like the original version of 2, and are like incorporating it a bit here. I remember when I was a kid, like it was scary to me, like that. Like, it's not like the scariest thing ever, but just like, yeah, being a kid and playing a game that is like known for being atmospheric and like mysterious and everything, but like very rarely veers into straight up horror. Like the concept of the GF troopers being like brought back to life as like puppets of the Ing is just like a very disturbing idea, and then like shooting them and their like bodies like ragdolling all over the place. Like now as an adult, those are like very slow moving, easy tutorial enemies, but you know, as a kid it was like horrifying, you know, like dealing with them, and I wanted to like get through the section as quickly as possible because it was so scary to me.
It's definitely a step above of what Prime 1 is, what Prime 1 did, right? Even the creepier moments of Prime 1 with like enemies and stuff don't really reach the fucking level of, oh shit, I'm fighting fucking dark zombies and shit, and like monsters that you really hadn't seen in the first game, which is super cool, right? Is that like the game already starts you off kind of giving you the vibe of like, this is like, you've played Prime 1, you know, like what, you know, to experience, you know what to expect with like gameplay controls and all that, but it gives you a lot of new stuff you could not do in Prime 1, you couldn't experience Prime 1. It's almost like fucking dumb allegory, but it's the Godfather Part 2 of video games, right?
Yeah. Where
it's like, it's very much a sequel, right? But in a way I'll get to it, it's a damn good sequel. But yeah, it's after that intro I thought is super cool. I always thought it was really cool, especially because you have most of your abilities that you got new in Prime 1, right? Like you have the boost ball, you have the boost ball.
Sure.
Yeah, but like
it definitely various suit and everything. Yeah,
exactly. Like you still have the Chozo shit, but you know, just a new start. But after that, it's kind of interesting where, like, from the point of that to meeting to like going through the temple
Moss?
grounds. Yes. I fucking forgot his name.
That's fine.
As you're doing that,
I'm here.
Yeah, there you go. Like, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God for what.
Yeah.
But at that point, I was kind of like, this is cool, but I've kind of played this before. It reminded me of whenever I played, like, Jedi Survivor. I was like, alright, like, this is cool, but, like, it didn't click for me yet. It hadn't really, and it didn't for another, like, hour or two, right? Where you meet the fucking, like, at this point, the only Luminoff around, right? And he gives you the fucking goal of, hey, there are these 3 temples, and that have been taken over by the Ing. We need them back. Like, we need that energy back. So you got to traverse through the world.
To explain, like, a little bit, like, so Luminoth, they're like these huge, they're like these 8-foot tall, like, bug guys. You know, they're like moths, obviously, and they have the power of light, so they can, like, control light and make, like, little holograms in their hand with magic. And their lore tablets, instead of being, like, the hieroglyphs with, like, the wavy magic stuff on them, like in Prime 1, they're holograms. And one of the, like, narrative designers in Prime said specifically they speak through sign language.
Yeah.
And those, like, the orbs on the lore things are supposed to be their knuckles and the movements that they make in order to spell out what the lore is saying. And that's, like, such a cool...
That's fucking cool.
Yeah, that is such a cool world building element that's not, like, made explicit in the game. But, like, yeah, that's like one of those things that's, like, interesting to point out. But I also do want to point out that like, the Ing, who are the main antagonists of the game that you're fighting, they are, like, they're these very strange sort of, like, creatures of darkness. They have, like, a single, like, glowing, fucked up eye. They're very, like, Lovecraft, sort of, like, Cthulhu monsters. And, like, that, it's, like, their position in the series is very interesting, just because it is, like, it's a lot more metaphysical than, like, sci-fi. You know, like, it's not, like, it is, like, the idea of, like, dark and light and everything like that. It kind of shows that Metroid isn't just, like, a hard sci-fi series, and it never really was. Like, there is, like, a magic or mystical element to its world, and there is that sort of, like, you know, if a planet is embodied by these creatures who are, like they took the light from the planet and sort of isolated it, and then it's hit by a meteor, similar to what happened in Prime 1 to Talon 4. This is foreshadowing. It ends up, like, with that planet, it just, like, it fucked things up. It infected the planet. You know, it caused destruction. With Aether, it didn't harm Aether. It just created a rift and, like, a second version of it, and that's where all the Phazon, like, spread and mutated and everything. And, like, from that, like, primordial darkness and the Phazon and everything, that's where the Ing came from. And it's, like, kind of left up to interpretation, though there's, like, a little bit of an explanation in Prime 3 as to, like, what they are. But it's just, like, I don't know, I love that. There's just, like, a little bit of a mystery. And again, it's, like, sort of a element that is, like, can't be explained through science fiction. It's just, like, purely fantastical in that way. And it's, like, or beyond our understanding or whatever. It's basically, like, they're, like, shadow people from the astral plane. You know, like, that kind of, like, pseudoscience thing, rather than being, like, bespoke creatures. And one more thing I want to mention about, like, the first starting area. First of all, music slaps. The Temple Grounds music is so good.
We'll definitely talk about music throughout this, but music already is at a good fucking start.
Yeah, because you start with, like, a very eerie track as you're exploring the GF base. And all the lore scans from the, like, dead bodies are, like, really good, because it is very, like, Resident Evil style, like, horror text of, like, right before the disaster, and, like, some of them are, like, while they're being attacked, or, like, some of them are, like, cut off as like the person is like speaking it and then they die and things like that. And you get some good characterization for some of the GF troopers. Like there's like one guy who it was like making fun of like one of the other female troopers because she idolizes Samus, and he's like, he just doesn't believe that she exists because it's so ridiculous to imagine that one lady went into a planet controlled by the space pirates and beat them all on her own and then left. Like that is like, to normal guys and like Master Chief armor, like that probably is like completely insane. Like there's no way that could have happened. So that's just like a funny, and then you like eventually find like that lady that he's talking about's corpse, you know, and like read her log, and you can see that it's like, yeah, she does feel like, yeah, and she looks up to Samus like as like in like a representation kind of like empowerment way, which is like, I don't know, kind of ahead of its time in like 2004.
Very, yeah,
with
super
with that
neat.
kind of storytelling. So,
but
yeah,
I also think, going back a little bit, right, with the fantastical stuff, I think that's something that really does set Metroid apart from Halo. Is that I always thought, even like with the little bits I played of like Super Metroid, Metroid 1, is that Metroid always felt a little bit more like organic than Halo, where Halo's so like sci-fi forward, right? And that's very cool. But Metroid also still has a lot of fantasy elements and stuff, especially with this Chozo and stuff in Prime. Yeah. And especially with the Ink stuff in 2. And something I thought was very interesting in Prime 2, when I first played it, it kind of blew my mind, was that there's actual spoken dialogue. There's not voice acting, but there is like people actually like talk to you, and like, you know, whenever you first see the Galactic Federation, like they get attacked and they're all like fucking murdered and stuff. You see, like, you get like text of them actually speaking, which I think is one thing that very much is like an interesting way to immediately set this apart from Prime 1, where Prime 1's a very lonely game. You don't really like there's no one to talk to or anything. Yeah, super impressionistic sort of storytelling and world building, you know, where you can like interpret it many different ways. And I love, like, that's sort of a beauty to the game, but there is, like, no matter how much I want to be the guy who believes that, like, you know, that kind of like elegance is better, there is always going to be the like nerdy lore guy in the back of my head that is like, but this is like cooler. This is like, no,
you know,
it's very fucking cool. Also, like, going to gameplay a little bit, there's a lot of little changes that I didn't expect that, like, here is very much like, whoa. For one, I don't know why this is such a big deal to me, but the scan visor works pretty differently now. Instead of, you know, you just scan a little icon above, like, the thing, now you can scan any part of, like, the fucking object, as long as you get, like, your little reticle in that big area. It kind of looks cooler, it looks a little, like, cleaner and shit, but, the only thing I thought was a bit weird is, I guess, to, like, save on text and stuff like that, because on Prime 1, they give you the whole text file whenever you scan. So even, like, mid-comment, like, you scan it, and, like, click through, read it through. But Prime 2, like, it'll give you the bare essentials, and then go, if you want the rest, you go on this logbook and stuff. Which I think is very cool, but, something I just didn't expect, especially like later on, where I would go out of my way to have to open up the logbook to kind of read a bit more on these like bosses and
certain
stuff.
enemy. And like, that is like an interesting, that is like a change that I remember like really throwing me off as a kid, because I didn't realize that there was like more elaborate writing about like the enemies or bosses or whatever when you scan them. Like, because they just give you that blurb up front, and then you press start, and it opens the thing. I will say, though, I love the model viewer.
Oh, yeah.
In, like, which isn't in Prime 1. The fact that, like, you can go to the, you know, the logbook and, like, look at enemies and, like, turn their models around and, like, zoom in and zoom out. Things like that. So good.
It's
I love
super
it so
neat.
Though, it actually, like, you know, that's... that is something that I did wish existed with Prime 1, and I wish that they put into Prime Remaster was like a model viewer for all the enemies, especially because they had like new textures and some of them are like slightly redesigned and everything. So I'd just like to get a good look at those enemies. But like, yeah, it is like Prime. I do like the like weird little like X-ray or whatever like photos of the enemies like in Prime 1. But Prime 3 gives you both. You know, you get those like the images, and then you can go to a model viewer and look at them. So I don't know.
I definitely think part of that probably is because, fun fact for all you gamers out there, Nintendo first party never released a game on GameCube, or never developed a game on GameCube that was in widescreen. Yeah. Nearly every game they did was in progressive scan, so 480p, but they never did a widescreen game on GameCube. So, like, you know, I guess to save, like, you know, room and stuff like that, like, they did, like, the, like, fucking side thing of Prime 1 because, you know, smaller text and all that stuff. Widen the text in Prime 2, but get rid of that stuff. Now, Prime 3, well, we have the luxury of it, so let's do both.
Yeah, exactly. And Prime 3, yeah, it was kind of weird, like, playing, because I played the remaster for Prime 1, and, you know, I'll be playing Prime 3 just, like, on the Wii in 16:9. It's funny playing Prime 2, like, in 4:3. It's not, like, a huge issue.
No.
But it is, like a funny, like, weird dissonance. And I will say, like, I have never, ever had an issue with the controls in Prime. Like, we talked about that last episode, but, like, just in general, like, I just need to reiterate, because this is currently the only Prime game. Well, I guess you can play the trilogy version with the tank controls or whatever. Yeah, but like it's the only one that I have that still has like the tank controls that I'm going to be playing here, and like never had any issues with them personally. Only thing that is kind of awkward is the like, you know, the inverted, you know, up and down.
Right.
But like you get kind of used to it pretty quickly. And I don't know. I also do want to point out like, Jesus, I don't understand how this game looks as good as it does.
I don't get it.
When it's like, it wasn't even. It's like 2 years after the first one, and it looks like the first one looked incredible for an early GameCube game. Like it looked like you know, you compare it to Halo, and it looks way better than Halo. Halo, a great looking game, but like it just looks way better because it's just a lot more condensed. It's a lot more stylish, and you know the areas that you're visiting are a bit more interesting, everything like that. Prime 2, like everything is better. Like the graphics just look way better, the textures look better, the animation is way better in Prime 2 than it is in Prime 1. You know,
Prime 2 may arguably be the best looking game on the GameCube.
I would say for sure.
It's definitely the most impressive game, especially with like the game looks better and it's bigger, and there's a fucking whole dual wheel mechanic we'll get to in a bit. You know, there's just so much more going on, and it still looks this good. It still runs this good. Like it. Again, I played these games on Wii. The only benefit, aside from the controls, of playing Prime Trilogy is that the Wii version does run in native widescreen. Other than that, it looks the same, which is still like, holy shit, like Prime 2 looks better than most Wii games. Like, it's insane. Yeah. And I definitely think a big part of that is because, like we talked about in the previous episode, Retro has made a lot of developers from Iguana, who made the Turok games. And the Turok games are easily some of the best looking games on the N64. With the huge levels, the really great graphics, especially with the expansion pack. Like, these motherfuckers know how to push hardware to the limits, and goddamn do they know how to do it with the GameCube. It's insane. Yeah. And, like, Prime 2 is so good looking, and then, you know, we'll talk about it more in the Prime 3 episode, but that game is also the best looking game on the Wii. So it's like... they just keep doing it. And then Prime 4, we just saw like Jesus
90 seconds of footage of it, and I'm like, this looks like a PS4 game. Like it's just like, holy shit. You know, it's like, what the fuck? How did they get this much power out of the Switch? And then like, you know, you can, not to beat a dead horse, but you look at stuff like Pokemon, and it's like this looks like a 3DS game still. You know, just like it doesn't look that much better than like the 3DS games. You know, just like higher poly counts and things like that, but otherwise like runs like crap, you know, everything. But like Prime 4 is like amazing graphics, great style, great special effects, you know, and particle effects and everything like that. Runs at 60 FPS, you know. It's like, obviously if you look at it and you know what you're looking for, you can be like, this is still a Switch game. But as a Switch game, it's incredible, which is, I mean, one of the reasons why I think people that want a cross-gen version are sort of like, I don't know, dude, it looks really good. Like, it looks good already. You know, like, yeah, maybe if a cross-gen version is like, oh, the field of view is better, you know, so there's not as much pop-in, and the resolution is better, you know, because it says it's 900p. So make it like, you know, 144p or whatever, or yeah, whatever.
Some baloney.
Yeah, something higher than like not 144. That's very small, but the
1440 or something. Yeah,
1440. But yeah, I don't know that like. But I just want to point out that Prime 2 looks unbelievable. Everything about it, like, it just looks. Yeah. It looks so much better. Even like the camera work for cutscenes and everything is so much more dynamic and cinematic in a way that I feel like would paint. Like, I feel like we go from this to Prime 3, like, even more cinematic, and then, like, we ignore other M, not just because, you know, I dislike that game, but because it's, like, Team Ninja making it, and they're doing it in their style, so it doesn't feel, like coherent with what Retro was doing. But I definitely feel like Samus Returns and Dread, like, they looked at Prime 3 in the sort of like silent storytelling and body language and that kind of animation, and sort of like up the ante in those games to the point where you get to Dread and it's like a fucking tour de force of like, it's one of the best, some of the best animation I've ever seen, not just in video games but in like the medium of visual art, you know. It just like looks so good and so expressive, and like the way that, I mean, I can get into a whole thing about Dread, but we're not going to. But okay, I think
one more final thing about graphics, though. I think another reason why this game looks so good is that we didn't mention it very much, but during Prime 1, for a lot of development, Retro was making like a bunch of different games. They're making fucking a football game. They're making Raven Blade. They're making another fucking like action like fantasy game, right? They had a bunch of projects on, at least 4. And all of them slowly got canceled to help finish Prime. But, you know, relatively small studio doing a bunch of different stuff to help make the GameCube more of a, like, more appealing to, like, teenagers and adults. That was Retro's thing.
Yeah.
But when Prime was done, like, everyone just Nintendo's just kind of like, all right, now you all make Prime 2. So they had everyone from the start do the sequel. So I guess that, in turn, definitely, like, helps them polish it even more. Right. Yeah,
definitely. I think it makes sense that they're like, especially because so much of the groundwork was already handled. So like the game is super economical as far as like reusing assets and like enemy behaviors and weapons, especially because like, oh, the light beam that functions like the plasma beam, and the dark beam that functions like the ice beam. And then the Annihilator beam is kind of its own thing, just because it's like a weird homing beam. So like that needed to be like programmed. Though the design of the arm cannon is based on the plasma beam. Like they all, like the arm cannons like transform in the same way that they do with plasma wave and ice. But like the bosses too. Like there's a lot of bosses that are like, you know, a bigger version of an enemy that you already fought, or like there's 2 bosses in the game, the Jump Guardian and the Boost Guardian, which are the same model. They just like behave differently, and like in those models in general are just sort of like an amped up version of like the main Warrior-ing model. And I'll say I'm totally fine with all those things, like those corner cutting things. Do not mind at all. And I personally really like about Prime 2 the fact that there's so many bosses that are just like, oh, here is a big like predator. Like here's the alpha version of this like enemy you've been fighting. And then sometimes it gets like turned into a dark version of that. There's just like so many examples of that that's so cool. In general, I love the idea that Samus gets all of her equipment stolen by the Aang at the beginning of the game, and then
Bastards.
throughout the game you're getting it back from them, and they've like transformed their body composition from like the generic, basic Aang form to fit like whatever power up they get. So like the Grapple Guardian has like the giant Cyclops eye and a horn, and it like shoots out the like electrical beam and everything like that. All that shit is just so cool.
Yeah, no. Like each of the Guardians, like, because I've definitely seen people complain before about the Guardians having kind of like almost like copy paste like thing, but each of them have their own unique like kind of look to them, and even then, right? Like even if they look kind of similar, they do not fight similar, right? So I never really had that kind of issue when I played the game.
Yeah. But like I think that we can go on and just talk about some of like the different areas in the game. And I'll say that one of the contributing factors to what I think some people's like negative or like this is the same thing opinion on Prime 2 is that the first major area you go to, Agon Wastes, is another kind of desert, temple area similar to Chozo Ruins in Prime 1. Even though it's more of like a big like a dune like arena kind of thing going on than like rather than like a temple with like a big tree and everything. It still is visually similar. It's the same kind of like color scheme of like the tan and orange and all of that. And the biggest like element that like shakes things up is the Space Pirate base in like the second half of the area. But I wanted to ask you, like, did you feel that like that sort of, because you said it took you a bit to like really get into the game, but did you feel like fatigue of like going like, oh, we're doing another desert area as the first major area after the tutorial?
Honestly, a little bit. It was definitely worse of a feeling when I first played Prime 2. Because I played Prime 2 because while recording these, right, like we definitely, I took a few days between Prime 1 and Prime 2. When I first played Prime 2, it was the like literal like day after, right? And so playing it, like I was kind of like, okay, we're playing Metroid Prime again, and I always kind of have at least a little bit of issues with like sequels that kind of like come off the same way and all that shit. So I want something to feel different, right? It definitely helps with the Space Pirate base being in the first area compared to like technically the third in the first game. I thought the pirate base being in Agon Waste was super cool, but at first like I wasn't really huge on it because I was like, this feels good. This is still Metroid Prime, right? It's still a dope game, but it definitely felt like, okay, I'm kind of like, I'm especially with the whole like, I gotta get my abilities again. I gotta cleanse this area somehow, and we're starting off with a little kind of like sunsetty, deserty like look. Even if it is a different kind of desert, still kind of similar idea. I will say, most of that completely fucking changed by the first time you go into the Dark World.
Yeah.
Once the Dark World area effect really came in, Prime 2 started to click really good, and it kind of just went up towards that. So,
I have new opinions on the Dark World that I hadn't had until this playthrough. So let me go over it. So
go ahead.
My main issue with Prime 2 and 3 compared to 1 is, and this is worse in 3 just because the areas are literally different planets. But like Prime 2, it has a central hub area and then 3 other zones, and they're all mostly unconnected to each other. Whereas Prime 1 and Super Metroid always felt like there was some way, secret or otherwise, that you could get from one area to another very quickly. And it just felt more naturally connected, like a real world, as opposed to like zones in a video game.
Right.
And that element is still there in Prime 2. Like, I still feel that a bit on this playthrough. But I think what really helps it that variety of like going back and forth between different areas is the Dark World, because you're not going to like completely different areas, but you're going between versions of an area in and out in order to like progress through each other. You know, it's not just you don't just do like you do the light world, then you do the dark world. It's like you have to weave in between the two, and that I feel like gave me that same sense of like a world that requires sort of it requires lateral thinking. You know, that's why I like worlds that are like interconnected, is because sometimes you'll enter an area and it's where you're supposed to be, but sometimes the path forward is located in a different area, you know, or like a progression item or something to unlock the thing is like located in a different area than like where you need to be right now. And that element, I think, is in some ways toned down in Prime 2, but I think it remains alive through the Dark World, Light World mechanic. And I can see how it's overwhelming to some people.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you like give it that chance and you sort of, like view it in that way, it starts to become a lot more of a benefit to the game on like that kind of level, and like the interesting like gameplay variety and exploration and everything. Because, again, largely, when you enter Torvus Bog, you're going to be in Torvus Bog until you beat the boss.
Right.
You know,
yes.
like that's sort of the... And, like, you go back there one more time, before the final endgame hunt. But otherwise, you are just... The areas are, like, you play them until you beat the giant boss at the end. You know, whereas, like, that wasn't necessarily the case in Prime 1. Like, Prime 1, you've play through Fendrana Drifts until you beat Thardus, but you still have to go back to Fendrana Drifts whole second half of the area, that's like unlocked after you get the Ice Beam, and like exploring there. There's no boss, but it's still like a new area and new hazards and everything that you're exploring. So that isn't there so much, but like I said, the like weaving between the two worlds with the light and dark thing, like that sort of makes up for it, in my opinion. Like in this current playthrough that I did, like that's how I felt.
I totally do agree with you, right? Like I do think something that made Prime 1 definitely felt like a whole world, right? It definitely felt like alive and breathing, like, every little bit of Prime 1's world really mattered because you're constantly going back and forth. Like Chozo Ruins is like the area you go to arguably the most in the game because it interconnects so much. Prime 2 doesn't really do like, going back and forth all the time throughout the game. And the few times it does, it always was like, well, where do I go now? It's like, oh no, I have to go to another area. But if they were going to do it where you have to focus on just beating these big levels, I'm very happy they still worked in a way to make it feel like fresh. Like you're not going through the same locations over and over again. You're not just going back and forth. Which on that, something I like to do after I beat a game is watch some contemporary reviews of the game. Whether it be Electric Playground with dumbass Tommy Fuckface, which I could not... I found a review for Prime 1, I could not find a review for Prime 2. However, I did find a review of Prime 2 through XPlay, our fucking favorite. And they still ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. They're like, it's really good. But Morgan Webb said two main things. She didn't like the Dark World, and she thought that the backtracking was way worse. And I was like, okay, no, but, like, on one hand, I can kind of see it, because at first, right, Dark World is not a place you really want to be in, because until you get your suit upgrade, you drain through health if you're not in the light. Which honestly makes it a bit scary, because like there are extended points in some areas through the Dark World where you have to go without light, or you have light sources that go out pretty quick. So it can make it kind of tense and cool and stuff, but it's definitely, like you said, overwhelming at first, because you got to basically learn a lot of that like on your own, as the game basically just says at the top screen, like, this is the Dark World, stay in the light, watch out, but that in turn kind of makes it like really elusive, right? Where you kind of work your courage to constantly go into it, especially once you get the dark suit, right? Where at first you kind of avoid trying to go in there, and the game knows that, so it makes you mainly do light world. But as the game goes on, it really makes you do dark world constantly, over and like more and more and more until that hunt, which is entirely in the dark world. It's really fucking smart game design in that, and that's where Prime 2 fully was like, this game fucking owns, because it makes you go out of your comfort zone, but never to the point where it makes the player feel as if they're constantly doing something wrong.
Yeah. One thing I love with the Dark World is, like, it on an aesthetic level being like a twisted version of the areas that you're in, but it's not just like, I don't know, they don't just put like a purple filter over everything. It does change, like, some of the level geometry is the same, but some of it's different. Like, some of it like does change. Some areas are like that are connected in the light world are not connected in the dark world, and like vice versa. And like the I don't know, the tone, it just has like the most atmosphere, because it is like you're in like a place that is not only like very dangerous and hostile in every single way, but it shouldn't exist. You're just like in like a astral hellscape as you're going through this area, and you're like just being constantly attacked by like the main forces of these enemies, because they can like take physical form in the dark world, where they have to rely on like possessing other enemies in the light world. And like, this is another thing to bring up. Another controversial element of Prime 2 is the weakness mechanic, the idea of the light and dark beam, and the fact that they have ammo, which is not a thing that's common in other Metroid games. The only other Metroid game that has, ammo for the beams is Hunters. And Prime 2, like, I personally have never really felt too like anxious or like upset by like the ammo. Like, I know some people are like, this is terrible, get this, never put this in the game ever again. And I guess I can see where they're coming from. Like, you can see, like, if it does fuck you up or whatever, like, yeah, it can be pretty annoying. But there's, like, a few fail-safes that are put into it. Like, it's very easy to get ammo. All you need to do is destroy something with... If you destroy something with a light beam, you get dark ammo. If you destroy something with a dark beam, you get light ammo. And you end up getting usually a lot at once.
Yeah.
2, there are ammo expansions, and they are like pretty well hidden compared to the other expansions, because they're very rare. There's only like 4 of them in the game. But if you are like a person that does like to explore and likes to to go through and dig in every nook and cranny, you'll be you'll be fine by the end of the game. Like, it's not super hard to get full ammo by the end of the game, compared to like full missiles, where it's like you have to be really fucking like looking everywhere to find all the missiles.
I got a lot of the missiles, but I did not even come close to getting all the missiles. I will say, really fucking like how it's like not long after you get the dark beam that you get the light beam. Very cool.
Yeah, they give them to you both very quickly, just because it's like, unlike in Prime 1 where it's like escalating power, they are sort of like, here you go, here's the different beams. You have the power beam to take care of anybody generally, light beam to take care of dark enemies, dark beam to take care of light enemies. Like, that's like, bam, there you go. So it's a lot of variety. Like, up front, it's an interesting... It doesn't seem intuitive, because Metroid has taught you that, you get beams throughout the game and they get stronger and stronger. But this just being like, here's these ones that all have their application. They're all like generally useful, which is good, because Prime had the problem of like the wave beam. By the time that you get the ice beam, and especially the plasma beam, it's like, why the fuck would you ever use the wave beam other than to open doors?
That's what made it work so well for me, because at first I was like, that's really weird. Like, I remember it having ammo in the multiplayer, but that makes sense because, it's just going to be like a temporary thing, right? So I thought, okay, the beams have ammo in multiplayer. That's weird, but whatever. But when I found they hadn't been, because I didn't have any of the extra beams when I stopped playing Prime 2 first. So when I got,
you stopped like right before you got to that.
Yeah, yeah, I did. It was like right before the first Dark Samus fight, which we'll get to. But I think the ammo thing is very smart because, for one, something else the game tells you is that even if you run out of ammo, if you charge your dark or light beam, you can still fire a normal shot, meaning you can enter the doors even with no ammo, which is, thank God. 2, like you said, like, by the end of the game, unless you have to fight like the more like the specific weakness like Space Pirates or Metroid Prime, you can basically eliminate everything immediately with the plasma beam in the first Metroid Prime.
Yeah,
it is really fucking good. There is a bonus to using every beam in Prime 2. In fact, where part of it's definitely survival horror brain, where I want to fucking conserve all my ammo, but also I still found myself using power beam the most in the game because I can use my super missiles with it. But also it's a safe, it's a powerful, and a good first use, right? Where if I want to go get bougie with it, I can use my other beams, or maybe even Annihilator beam if I'm nasty with it. But I always felt perfectly fine, safe with the power beam, which is really fucking good game design. Where any of the 4 beams at most points will get you through. You're fine.
Exactly. You might be using Annihilator beam the least, just because it's at the very end of the game, and it's it requires both of the ammo types. But it is when it's useful, it is very useful, and there's nothing more satisfying than using the Annihilator beam on one of the light beacons, and then it attracts all of the enemies to the beacon because it's a mixture of light and dark, so they're attracted to the darkness, but then they die in the light. It's just so satisfying to destroy 4 Ing Warriors at once.
Yeah.
By just creating a super beacon and killing them. Things like that is just so cool. And yeah, I just think the beam, that idea is the most balanced. I think there's a case to be made that they overcorrected in Prime 3, where they just went back to the 2D Metroid style of you have the power beam and then it's upgraded, and then multiple times your base beam is upgraded rather than being able to swap between multiple ones. It's weird that when people talk about, oh, what do you want from Prime 4? Do you want the beams to be stacked on top of each other, or do you want to switch between them? A lot of people say that they want to switch, but then they'll also say that they didn't like how it was done in Prime 2, when I think it's way better in Prime 2 than it is in Prime 1, because in Prime 1 it's still functionally escalating power, Wave Beam is stronger than Power Beam, Ice Beam stronger than Wave, Plasma stronger than Ice, and then it just sort of makes it kind of annoying to traversal, where you're oh, I have to use the Wave Beam in this room because there's a wave door I have to open. It feels kind of a little iffy there.
You gotta constantly move the C-stick, or on Wii, hold fucking plus and just move the Wii remote again and again. Fucking, I love those Wii controls, but man, it got tiring.
Yeah. So it's nice to be okay, I'm in the dark world. I'm gonna be fighting dark enemies, so I'll just put the light beam on, and switch occasionally to the dark beam to get more ammo for it. And the light beam, so the dark beam is very interesting because you get it after beating Dark Samus. This game pulls a little psychological trick on you that I didn't notice until I was older, is that Dark Samus is not a dark enemy. So, it's interesting that you get the dark beam after you beat her. You don't get it from her, but, you get your allowed access to it, after you beat her. But because the game is all about, the light and dark world, and there's a character named Dark Samus, your natural conclusion is, of course the light beam is going to be strong against her. No. It resists the light beam because it's a light world enemy, because it's not related to the aim.
Yeah.
It's only on the dark world because it wants Phazon. Because the end of the game, And if you played Prime 1 and got the secret ending, you learn that it's the Metroid Prime inhabiting the Phazon suit. And so it is a light world enemy, so like the Dark Beam, when you fight Dark Samus like in Sanctuary Fortress, and then at the end of the game, the Dark Beam does the most damage to her, which is like,
cool.
Again, it's one of those things that seems like it's unintuitive because of the name, but like makes sense on like a world building level. Like they like actually programmed that in like smartly, and it's like something I didn't realize until like, you know, like very recently, like probably like within the past like 5-6 years or whatever.
That's arguably my favorite thing about Prime 2 as a whole, as we'll get to, is that it is like I said about it being the Godfather 2 of Metroid or whatever, or video games, is that it is so rewarding as someone who is a fan of Prime 1. It is absolute, like, sure, you could probably play it without playing Prime 1. You're dumb if you do that, but you could probably do it. But it is such a great game for people who played the first game, because it gives you, like, so much to work with, and it gives you so many like different, like, hey, I remember that, or you know, all that shit. Like, it's a cool version of remember this, like, especially when going to the music, you'll hear a lot of familiar stings, like boop 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 boop. And you don't really hear that stuff much in Prime 1, but Prime 2 definitely feels more of an, it almost feels more, it's like more embracing of Metroid as a whole. Where Prime 1 is like a really cool, like, soft reboot, right? But still a great Metroid game. Prime 2 is like, this is fucking Metroid.
Yeah, definitely, especially because, like, Prime 2 came out the same year as Zero Mission, which is a fucking masterpiece, by the way. So go play that on NSO now. If you have the, like, Plus membership or whatever, you can play Zero Mission, which is... Or if you want to pay $90 on eBay or whatever, like I have no idea how much it is now, but
you ain't far off.
Probably less. But like that kind of like introduced me to a lot of. That's like my first introduction to the first Metroid was Zero Mission. Playing that and then replay, like, you know, you unlock Metroid 1 after you beat Zero Mission, so you know, getting to like play through it on the Game Boy Advance, and I was able to like use my knowledge of Zero Mission to play through Metroid 1, because the general layout is like very similar, so you know, I just like used my memory of like the remake to like beat the original game. But you know, this is getting way ahead, but the final escape from Dark Aether, the music that plays isn't the like countdown music from Super Metroid, it's from Metroid 1. Like when you're escaping the Mother Brain. Yeah, so like in the countdown music that is playing, and then the fight with Dark Samus at the end, like that music that's playing is from Metroid 1. So that's like, they are really digging into the whole series, not just Prime 1 and not just Super, the game before Prime. And that's what really makes this game feel like Prime... amazing game, but there is sort of an outsider feeling to it. Like, it feels like it is kind of being made by, you know, this like Western developer that's just sort of like, what would we do if we made like a 3D Super Metroid, you know, like, and it worked brilliantly, but this game has a little bit more of the Nintendo finesse to it. I mean, it has like the mechanics, it has like, the boss fights are very like well designed, you know, like you know, opinions are in the air, like whether they're better or worse than the other games, and some people fucking hate some of the boss battles in this game, but they are like so well designed in such a way, you know, and that, I think that a lot of that comes from Kensuke Tanabe coming on as like the series producer, and according to the people at Retro, you know, like a lot of the designers and everything, they said that like he was very much in charge of all the boss fights, and you know, he was like very responsible for like the best boss fights in the game, you know, like, so all the temple guardians were like as good as they are because of him, and they will like throw a lot of praise at him. Whereas like, with Prime 1, it was Miyamoto who was in charge, and he was like a huge contributing factor, but like nobody really thinks of Miyamoto when they think of Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think of Kensuke Tanabe when they think of 2 and 3, just because he had such control over it. But now fucking Paper Mario fans hate Kensuke Tanabe because they're like, you ruined our series and you made it.
Took away our characters, dude.
Yeah, and it just that annoys me because I'm like, guys, I get it. Like I didn't like fucking Sticker Star either, but like being like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, basically saying like this guy sucks just because he ruined your one game. By the way, the worst Mario RPG series, but whatever. Not even gonna. I've already stated my opinion that I think Mario and Luigi is way better than Paper Mario, but whatever.
I didn't even play this. I've only played Paper Mario. I've not played any of the Mario and Luigi games.
Yeah, I look. I really like. I would even say love Paper Mario. The first 2 games,
I love
Super Paper Mario on the Wii. Like great games.
Yeah.
But as far as like actual RPGs that are fun to play, Mario and Luigi is so much better. Like it's just so fun. It's so fun. It's so much more RPG, but also like a lot more actiony, and it's funnier. Whatever. Just. But I think the game like increases the amount of boss fights by like a significant degree. Like you still have the like big set piece bosses like Morbus in Agon Wastes, in the Chaika in Torvus Bog, and then the Quadraxis in Sanctuary Fortress. But it has a lot of the like mini boss enemies too that are, some of them can be very elaborate. Like the Spider Guardian is like God. Insane. Like that is like one of the most like, holy fuck, how did they think of this boss fight? And I can't believe how much. Some would say they cooked a little too hard. I think they cooked just enough. Yeah. That's what I'll say.
Spider Guardian was absolutely one of my favorite fights. And a little bit of a background too is that I did not. So again, talking about this game, it was around the time I got to the famous Boost Guardian. We'll probably talk about it in just a second. But I was like, damn, this guy's a bitch. And Wyatt brought up 2 other bosses that were like complete assholes with like with stuff, namely the Alpha Blog and the Spider Guardian.
Yeah.
But Wyatt specifically said Spider Guardian is way fucking easier on Prime Trilogy. And after playing it on Prime Trilogy, I can fucking tell. Because one thing I did not mention is that in Prime Remastered, and also just for Prime Trilogy, these versions added the Spring Ball, which I didn't know was called that, but basically you shake the Wii Remote and your Morph Ball jumps. You do not need to bomb jump. And man, does it help. Man, does it
because in the original GameCube version, you have to be so precise with the bomb jumps in that fight, where there's so much more leeway when you use the Spring Ball in the Spider Guardian fight, that it is just like I have played this game a lot, and I've played this fight a lot as a kid. Like I died all the time to it, so I just like have that muscle memory of like what to do. But definitely like newcomers that are playing the GameCube version, I could see like having a really, really hard time with the boss because of how precise that is. The Boost Guardian, I feel like its biggest problem is it just does way too much damage.
Yes.
Like that's the only like really bad thing about it, because otherwise it is like, oh yeah, it's a fight where you're in like there's no light barrier. So like you're just constantly taking damage, but that's like part of the ticking clock of the battle, is that you're like managing your health versus this boss.
Plus, if you kill the other enemies around it, it gives you a lot of health.
Yeah, and it's just like it is tricky and it is tough, but it is like, well, you're halfway through the game at this point. You should be fighting like tougher bosses and everything. But I just think it was like a little bit too much damage that it was doing to you. So like, if you hadn't explored enough, or like you missed an energy tank or two, very easy to die. But thankfully, the save room is not that far from the boss fight. Whereas with the Alpha Blog and the Spider Guardian, it's way too far away from the boss. You have to like do multiple like cutscenes or like environmental puzzles or whatever before getting to refight the boss, like if you lose to it, and that sucks. Like that is so demoralizing to like lose to the boss fight and then be like, oh god,
Yeah.
I can't even like rematch it immediately. I have to like dick around for like 10 minutes before I get to fight it again.
So I actually, the Boost Guardian was actually one of my favorite fights in Prime 2. I actually really liked it, right? I did die to it, but again, you spawn right next to it. And I didn't actually end up dying. I came close, but I did not end up dying to the Spider Guardian. But I fucking hated the Alpha Blog. Asshole fucking boss.
That is the worst. That is the worst boss in the game,
Yeah.
for sure. Because it's just annoying.
Yeah.
Like its pattern is just annoying. It's like really annoying to be like, okay, you have to hit it so that then it comes towards you, and then you have to like at the last second hit it and then move out of the way at the same time. And that's just like
It's stupid.
it's just like a lot, and it's like very precise, and you always fuck up in a way that feels like it's not your fault. So like that's very annoying, you know, like that. It is just like that's one of the bosses where it is like, you know, I like it in principle, and I like that it's a big light world enemy, so it gives you a chance to use the dark beam, because a lot of the guardians are like dark enemies, so you're just using the light beam on it. But I will say this: the dark beam. Like the light beam seems like it's better. The dark beam is busted because it functions like the ice beam. So even enemies that are dark enemies, you can kill very easily if you just freeze them and then shoot them with a missile. So the like dark pirate troopers that show up, that like teleport around the area,
Jerks.
like they're similar to the Chozo ghosts. If you shoot them with the dark beam, even though they're dark enemies, they'll freeze, and then you can blow them up with a missile. And it's like just a very easy way to deal with a very annoying enemy. And same thing with the res bits in Sanctuary Fortress.
God,
like,
dude.
you can freeze those and then shoot. But like, I do want to take a step back and be like, okay, we're talking about bosses and combat and everything.
Yeah.
And that's all important. I do want to like go through like the major 3 areas of the game. Just like one at a time and kind of talk. We already talked a good amount about Aegon. And like I said, I really like that it's kind of Dune inspired, especially with the boss being like a giant like sandworm, like a group of sandworms essentially that you're fighting. That's super cool.
Boss.
On a lore level, I like that they're like the guardian beasts of this area, because you see a lot of statues of Amorbis, like these giant worms, throughout the area. Even though like you encounter it as like a boss fight, it's clearly that like at one point before the Ing showed up, they were like these creatures similar to the sandworms like on Dune, that were like treated as like gods or like guardian beasts or things like that. And like that is just such a cool element of like, you get to, instead of fighting like a giant space pirate experiment or like a Phazon corrupted monster, you're fighting something that was just like a normal creature that had like this holy element to it that was then like twisted. So there is like this like bittersweet element to fighting the boss, because like, you know, it's it's you're killing like these sacred creatures, like in the Luminoth culture, basically. In general, like I think the game does have a really good, like, I would say obviously the Chozo lore and the Chozo in general are the more iconic of the like super intelligent, you know, ancient race of people. But the Luminoth, they put a lot of effort into the lore and the world building for the Luminoth, just in like little things like scanning, like you can scan certain like statues or figures, and they'll tell you like a little story of like who this person, like what the statue is like named after or was like made in tribute to. One of my favorites is in Aegon, in the area that you access the pirate base through. There's like a statue that forms a platform. If you scan it, you learn that it's like made in tribute to like a famous Luminoth warrior that was a young boy who was a farmer, but then got like roped up into the war, like became like a war hero, and like rose up, to like protect his village and everything. And that's just such a weird, cool thing to be like, oh, there's like, a boy hero that like existed and like died in glory, and they like made a statue like in tribute to him. My absolute favorite one of those, though, is in the Dark Temple grounds. When you get to the final area, like that you need all the Sky Temple keys to access, you have to get 9, but there's actually 10 that you need to access. One of them is already unlocked, and you can scan the body of the Luminoth who put it into place, and you learn that it was like a famous, like a woman hero, and she was the user of the armor before you got it, and like she fought to the end like on her own, similar to you. She was essentially like the Luminoth's version of Samus, though like died despite only getting one of the keys. But the game doesn't like it treats it like as a triumphant thing, as like like that key is stuck there forevermore, to be like, look, she only got one, but she got one. She got that one. It's always going to be there, and you just need to like finish her work. And that is just like such a, I don't know. It's like a weirdly somber, bittersweet kind of thing of, you're coming in and like these people almost had the power to fix their own problem, but just couldn't do it. Just couldn't quite do it, and were overpowered by these monsters. And then by the grace of God, you showed up and were able to like end up helping them and like get the ball rolling once again and finally like fix this problem that has been going on for like generations. It's just so, I don't know. Like that element is just so cool. The little,
absolutely.
Like as far as like all of the Luminoth stuff goes, like that one specific thing, like that scene, that idea is like one of my favorites in the game, just because it is, to imagine that there was like a hero like her that existed beforehand, and like she went the fucking distance. She was a lot more successful than like not only the Luminoth, but like the GF, which showed up and died instantly to a bunch of little spider things. So like that's and then got turned into like fucked up zombies. But yeah, so other areas, Torvus Bog.
What a fucking
I feel
place.
like once I get to Torvus Bog, I'm like, the real game has started. Like that's like my mind. Like I feel like now we're fucking playing Metroid Prime 2, baby, because
the song here is so good, and it's so pretty.
Like, I know this is like I think Prime 2 has the best soundtrack for sure across the 3 games. They all have like amazing soundtracks, but like like this song though, I think the only other song in Prime 1 that I like more is the sunken ship, like the sunken frigate like area. Like that one is like so beautiful and emotional and everything, but this one is so like, it's beautiful, but it's like a little bit sad, but it's not as like overwhelmingly sad as the sunken frigate. But it is like it just feels like the area. Like I don't know what they did, but they just like it like exactly feels like what being in like this sort of like rainforest swamp sort of area should feel like. Like they just sort of kind of nailed that. And then the Undertemple area, Red Brinstar from Super Metroid, thumbs up, fucking great. I don't care at all when they reuse music from Super Metroid, like Magmore Caverns being Lower Norfair. Don't care. It's awesome. And that's like the best version of that theme too. So just so good. And
I think it's super cool. Sorry, but real quick, I think it's super fucking cool that this area, it kind of feels like if they really expanded on the kind of outskirts, almost sunken ship area of Talon, where where a lot of that area was almost very rainforesty, fucking very humid, has a lot of the like underwater stuff. But if they expanded that more into a full-fledged area, which I was kind of hoping for, because that was always a part I thought was super underspoken about in Prime 1. So seeing a full area of this be so fucking good in Prime 2 was just great.
Yeah, the enemies are great, like it feels like, I don't know, it just is so, like it just feels fresh, even though, like you said, it's very similar to Talon Overworld, but like, it just feels very refreshing after being in Agon for so long. And then going into the Dark Taurus Bog, it's like fucked up because of now all the water is poison. So, whoops, stay out of the water. You got the dark suit, but it doesn't protect you from the poisonous waters. It takes until the light suit for you to be immune to that. And like, it's just a... like I remember like feeling the genuine horror of like how oppressive that area is, and that's like a really good element too. Like by the time that you get to Sanctuary Fortress, and it's not Dark Sanctuary Fortress, it's the Ing Hive. So you're like, fuck.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even realize that until pretty far into that. And I was like, dude, fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like you are in the belly of the beast right now. But like, I love that. I think that, there's so many great set pieces in Taurus Bog. The Temple Guardians it might be my favorite of the three, like as far as like boss fights go. The Quadraxis is like legendary. Like is like such a good boss fight just because of how elaborate it is. But I just love, I love a boss that like evolves as you're fighting it. So, where like Chaika, you first fight as a larva, then it like cracks into its like adult form, and then like that form mutates into like a dark version of itself. Just so cool. I love that entire fight. And then like the Dark Visor is like very situational. It's not as useful, or doesn't have as many applications as like the X-ray visor or thermal visor. But there is like some pretty clever things that it's done with, especially like in tandem with like the Seeker missiles, which is like another new upgrade in Prime 2. Seeker missiles are they're way cooler in theory than they are in practice. I'll say that. Where like,
I wish you used them more, honestly.
Yes,
it's funny. The first door I used them on, I kept fucking it up because one of the fucking like pads is in the like there's a fucking tree limb in the way, so I kept just like one of them kept pinging. I was like, what the fuck? Like game.
That is a huge problem with like that's a big problem with them. It's like a little bit better in Prime 3, but I think they perfected it in Dread, like the storm missiles, which are essentially the same thing, though that is 2D, so it's like a little bit different. I hope Prime 4 is able to do the Seeker missiles, but until I recently replayed through Other M, I completely fucking forgot the Seeker missiles were even in that game, and they're one of the few items that you get by actually beating an enemy instead of the like Adam saying, "Yeah, you can do that." Which annoys me. It's like, why the fuck didn't you just have the whole game? Yeah. Whatever.
I didn't even know the Seeker missiles was a fucking thing. It's like, I didn't realize they were a thing because it said, hit them all at the same time. My dumbass before, like, getting Seeker missiles, like, that's the power bomb doors. And then I found the yellow doors, like, this is the power bomb doors. I'm like, well, then what the hell is this? It's like, it's a Seeker missile. I was, like, completely confused by them. But, I didn't even know this is a thing in any of the Metroid games. But it is cool in theory, and I think they could definitely do more with it.
Yeah, and like I said, like, Dread did a really good job. Just because, like, they're good for environmental puzzles, but they're also, like, ridiculously good in combat. Like, they just sort of, like, that final section of the game where you have the storm missiles, you're just able to annihilate, especially the mini-bosses that you fight, like the Chozo soldiers and the robots and everything. Like, they just go down super quickly with the storm missiles. But But yeah, I would say Taurus Bog is kind of the most infamous area just because of the Boost Guardian and some of the more hostile elements in like the Dark World and everything, and the Alpha Blog and everything. But like, I think overall though, I think this is when the game sort of like forms into what it is, and it like I said, it really feels like Metroid Prime 2 is like, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, like this is what Metroid Prime 2 is when you get there and you're going through it and everything. And you know, I think like the boss fights too just like start to get better, and then by the time that you get to like Sanctuary Fortress, you know, the like a lot of the boss fights are like, I would say there's like 3 boss fights in Sanctuary Fortress that are Morph Ball boss fights, or 2 in Sanctuary Fortress, and 1 they had to leave Sanctuary Fortress, go to Torvus Bog, get the power bombs.
Yeah, that was a bit where I was like,
the power bomb guardian.
Like,
Yeah. That's one of the few examples of you actually have to leave an area and go to a previous one. So it's not completely absent in that game, but that's what I'm saying, where it's like it's not as regular as Prime 1, so it doesn't feel natural when it happens. But thankfully, like the Dark and Light World thing sort of makes it, you know, work better. But yeah, like the I don't know, there's a ton of stuff in Torvus that I really love, beyond like just the Temple Guardian, the aesthetic and the music, whatever. It just is like, yeah, I don't know, it just feels like the peak of the game in a certain way, even though the next area, Sanctuary Fortress, is super fucking cool.
Yeah. Sanctuary Fortress is my favorite area in the game.
Yeah.
Which, should we go ahead and just start talking about that area now? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
for sure.
So, it's funny, like, I was already like, oh, this place looks fucking cool. This is sick. Like, this Tron-ass area, which, for what you told me was supposedly, like, at one point originally supposed to take place in a computer? Which I was like, okay, yeah, I can tell, but it's super fucking cool because it's completely different from the rest of the fucking game. Like, no other area looks like this, which is really dope. And then you fight the Resbits, which Resbits are like the first time you fight in it, and they're fucking like kind of annoying, but I kind of like fighting them. But they have this specific attack where they fucking start charging up, and you can't lock on anymore, and they hit you, and they crash your fucking visor, and you have to do like a fucking button pressing like combination to do that. As soon as that happened, I paused the game, leaned back in my rocking chair, and went, "Oh my god!" Like, it's so cool, dude. It just looks sick.
I love that. Yeah, it is super cool. Another thing I love about Sanctuary Fortress and the Tron sort of weird like computer kind of aesthetic is that if you look out into the distance, you know, because you're on a mountain that's overlooking a city, and that's really cool to me because, you know, as much as I love Prime 1, there was always this idea of like, okay, but where do like the Chozo live?
Right.
You know, like we're in this temple or whatever, but like where was their houses? What is their like normal culture and daily life and everything like? And we don't get to like explore the city, but we see that it exists below so we can know that like, all right, this isn't just like a group of like 10 guys or whatever, like mystical beings like living on this planet. This is a full civilization, like technologically advanced civilization that lives on this planet that was reduced to almost nothing due to this war going on, you know, and Umos is like protecting the final, you know, group of Luminoth and everything that are still alive. That's so cool to me. Like on a, you know, and it's obviously tragic, but it's also like, it's cool that they at least still exist. Prime 3, I would say, probably has like the most fucked up, like sad, like world building and everything for like one of its main I mean, I guess both of the planets besides the pirate homeworld are like really sad, like the lore and everything. Those planets are really sad. Well, we'll get to that when we talk about that game. but Sanctuary Fortress is like it's a worthy final sort of area, similar to like Phazon Mines, and it feels more fair, and it feels like it's actually designed to be an area that has like good level design as opposed to Phazon Mines, which is just kind of a straight shoot to the end, like through an enemy gauntlet. Whereas like this is like, oh, you have the like the little like robot guys that spin around at you, and you have like all these enemies that are like very dangerous or very like aggressive and everything. So it feels like you're like deep into the game, and then like I said, the Ing Hive just impresses on you that you're like in the belly of the beast. And the boss of the area is like fucking huge. It's one of those things where it's like, man, I can't believe they got this to run so well on the GameCube. Like this is like a Shadow of the Colossus sized boss.
Yeah.
That you're fighting, and it's still running at 60 FPS the entire time. Like never drops a frame. You know? Yeah. And it's just like such a cool fight too, with that it like it's not the same as the Chaika where that like gets stronger as it goes. This is like getting weaker or like changing as it goes, which is still cool, but it's just I prefer the like the other option. Like I prefer a boss to get like more difficult as it goes on than getting less difficult. But it is still like a really, really cool boss.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I will say definitely a part of to add to the layout of Sanctuary is that it's something I didn't bring up, but definitely looking back, Phazon Mines is kind of a pain in the ass to backtrack in sometimes, because there's only really like one, maybe two like shortcuts in the entire stage. While in Sanctuary, you can go back and forth like everywhere pretty easily. But that's definitely nice because it's like triple the size. Sanctuary's huge. Yeah,
it's fucking huge. There's like a lot of different like weird areas too. Plus the Dark World version of it. It can be very overwhelming too. Yeah. And like, but I think that it is home to like some great, like some of the best level design in the game. Really, really good puzzles. Like a lot of the things that require you to use the spider ball and the boost ball are just like, that is really cool. Where you like fire off of a spider ball track, like, you know, and like onto another one across the room or whatever. Like that shit's awesome. And I just think it has some fantastic bosses. Like I love the Spider Guardian. I'm sorry, everybody. I think that the that like robot thing that you have to fight before you get the screw attack is great. Dark Samus, like the rematch with her, is awesome. Especially like fighting around the elevator, like for the first part of the fight. Just so cool. And then you kill her and she falls off this like gigantic tower. It just sort of was like, well, I think it's dead. But and then the fight with Quadraxis and everything, and then you get the Annihilator Beam, which is like a really cool reward for fighting a boss, like getting like a weapon that is just like so immediately strong. Like it's just its power is like, it doesn't feel like the Plasma Beam where that's just like, oh, this is really strong, it's at the end of the game, it makes sense, but it is like just outclasses the other beams. It does feel like a special occasion thing. Like they balanced it well, but they also did make it really powerful. So then its beam combo, the Sonic Boom, is like absurd. It like breaks reality. Like it causes like a fracture, like a glass fracture in like space and time. Really? Just like
I did not find that one. I found the other two. I did not find the special one for it.
It's in I think it's in the room, like with in Aegon Waste, like in the space pirate base, where you have to like lower and raise the platforms. Or no, it's in the there's like, it might be in the Dark World version of that.
Oh, because I don't think I checked the Dark. Because the other thing in there is the is like an energy tank on the light side. So dark side, I don't think I checked that.
But just like a super cool
That sounds sick.
Super cool beam and everything. And then, like, yeah, the, like, getting that and then going back to Umos, him being like, yeah, you got most of the light, except for one more thing. And then it's, like, telling you, like, you just need to get it from, like, the heart of the Ing itself, and then granting you the light suit, and then you go on the final, like, end game hunt. And I'll say this: way more tedious, maybe not tedious, way more, like, involved of a final game hunt than the artifacts. I have no idea why people have, like, really blown out of proportion how bad it is in Prime 1, when, like, I think Prime 2 does it, like, way, maybe not even worse, it just does it more than, like, I don't have a problem with either game, honestly.
I think a big part of it for me is that I definitely agree. I think the artifact hunt is better than the Sky Temple key hunt in Prime 2. And I think a big part of that was, like I said in the previous episode, in Prime 1, you can start the artifact hunt whenever the fuck you want, right? That is ultimately your goal from the start of the game, if you really think about it, is, like, finding all the artifacts. In Prime 2, most of the keys you cannot get until you get the light suit. And you don't even fucking know about it unless you wouldn't know to, like, look for this shit until the game tells you, unless you've already played it before. So I had not gotten any of the keys prior to it. And
you pretty much can't get them until you get the light suit.
Because it's kind of weird, like, every key is in the Dark World. And you have to go around and find this weird floating fucker, shoot him with the dark visor, then shoot him again, and he drops the key. And it's, like, in the most out of nowhere like areas. And I also feel like, you may not agree with this, I feel like the hints are more vague in this one than they are in Prime 1. Like,
for sure.
I looked at the hints and went, so I did use the guide a little bit to point me in the right direction. Like, mainly just,
no, I get that.
There's 2 in Torsbog, there's 2 here, there's 2 here, there's 3 here. Okay, fine. And then, like, a little bit of a player, and so I definitely feel like the hunt overall is weaker in Prime 2, but it's also, like, just a small thing. Like, you, like, it's like maybe an hour of the game.
Yeah. It's not too, it's more involved, but because you have fast travel at that point, and the light suit, you, like, are, like, a god of destruction by the end. Like, you are just, like, tanking hits, and you're completely immune to the Dark World, and, like, you know, you have the Annihilator Beam, and you have all this stuff, you have the Screw Attack, like, you have all this stuff, and
you are fucking set.
Yeah, you're just, like, you're just going through and, like, exploring and doing that. To me, I find it very satisfying as a reward at the end of the game to be able to have a moment where you can, like, you can truly express all of your abilities and whatever. Like, you can just go around and find all this stuff. Like, that is very satisfying. And let it not be unmentioned that I am, like, I know some people are not a fan of the dark suit, like, design. I think that it's, like, as far as, like, this is what a different culture's it's, like, supposed to be different from the Chozo and everything. The light suit, I feel like, is, like, an awesome, really cool design because of how sleek it is and how, like, it does feel like a mixture of that Luminoth and Chozo technology, but it also has this element of, like, it's less complex than the dark suit because it's more, like, pure. It's like this ascension sort of, and, like, this pure white suit. And it's just super cool. I love it. It's just a fantastic reward for, like, the end of the game. And I always feel, like, very powerful during the end game hunt and everything, like, going around. Yeah,
the game's really good at making you feel like a fucking badass at the end. I think the light suit's also really cool. I definitely, like, the dark suit doesn't look bad, though I definitely do, like, I do think it looks like fucking evil Buzz Lightyear, but, you know, like...
Yeah, it does look a lot dumber than... Or whatever, it looks worse than the Varia suit and everything. Like, but I do appreciate that they went for, like, the shape of her suit changes based on it, which I think is a cool idea compared to it just being palette swaps. And And I think they would incorporate that into like Samus Returns and Dread, where like the suit just it changes shape like as it goes on until you get to the final one in Dread, the Metroid suit, where it is like a complete berserker fucked up suit. But I think the only thing now left to talk about is the end game of.
Actually, did we talk about the sonar visor?
Oh yeah, the Echo. Well, we did talk about the Dark Samus fight before you get the Echo visor.
Honestly, I just want to say real quick, I wish they did more with it. like, it's super cool, but yeah, they don't do much.
I think it could have been introduced earlier in the game because it really only has application in Sanctuary Fortress and like a few areas elsewhere.
We got anti-tanks and stuff.
Like there's one part in, but yeah, it is like a really cool looking suit because it is the echolocation sort of, or visor or whatever, because the echolocation. But yeah, it is kind of like underused. It feels like they're, I don't know, like I wonder how they're gonna treat the visors and everything in Prime 4 because it definitely feels like by the time that we get to Prime 3, there's only one other visor, So it's just, it feels like they're kind of not feeling it anymore. But I don't know. We still have scanning and everything in Prime 4, so we'll just have to see when that comes out. But yeah, going to like the final area, I will say the unlike the Impact Crater where there is like a room that there's you have to like ascend and there's all the fission Metroids. You really are just like you get teleported in front of the boss and then you go one room and then you go and fight the final boss, which is the Emperor Ing.
Which what a fucking badass! Like this motherfucker commands all of your attention.
Yeah, it is. It's a similarly huge boss battle. It's like this gigantic, like massive tentacles sort of Cthulhu monster. It uses light and darkness. So like you really do have to be like on your A game and like use all of your arsenal to like take it down. And it is just like a very fun and involved fight, and one that does like shift and evolve too. It's probably like my favorite fight in the game, if not just like this entire sequence might be the best final sequence of like any Metroid game. Just like fighting the Emperor Ing, it transforms into its chrysalis. You break that open, and then it's like in its final form. The fucking music that plays, where it starts with a little like corrupted version of like the title theme. So good. It just like sends chills down my spine every time. And then just that fight where it shifts between like the dark and the light thing, like similar to the Metroid Prime, but it feels more it's so much more confrontational because it's not like a thing that's on the other side of the room that you're like firing like long range at. You're like up in its face firing at it in this arena. And then like beating that, getting the countdown, you're about to escape, and then who fucking shows up but Dark Samus again, but now she looks really fucked up because of like the Phazon, and like you can see a lot more clearly now that it is like the Metroid Prime. It like looks like the essence of the Metroid Prime, and just the like final showdown, the like them silently like looking at each other and then like aiming the guns
so sick
before the final battle. So good. And then like the fight is just like not too hard. It is very similar to the previous fights that you already done with her. Just with the added mechanic of like absorbing the Phazon and like firing it back.
So I actually had a lot of trouble with this fight. It's the fight I died on the most, and I think part of it was because like the stress of the timer. And I'll say when I first died to this fight, I got fucking pissed. I was like, oh my god, I have to fucking do the Emperor Ing again. Thankfully, you do not. The game makes you a fucking checkpoint when the timer starts. So thank you, Retro. Dear God, I would have had a fucking meltdown if I had to go back to my save. But I at first didn't, because I knew you had to suck up the Phazon. I didn't realize how it worked, and then after that, like
I don't know. Like, I had a bit of fucking trouble with that final fight. I actually died a few times with it.
Yeah, it isn't conveyed super well. Like, that's the... Like, when it enters its like, second phase and it's, like, jumping in the air and shoots out the phase. There is, like, a trick to it to get it, like, very consistently. But, like... Yeah, it is... Like I said, it's not conveyed very well, and it can be a little tricky because, like, if you miss... like a few of the like little blasts, like you get like stunned or whatever, and you don't get to like shoot it, fire it back.
That kept happening to me like a few times.
So it's like yeah, I'm gonna say like it's pretty fiddly. I think it's like maybe it's slightly easier on the GameCube version just because of the controls being more rigid, but I don't know for sure.
No, it definitely feels like it was.
But either way, like. Yeah. But either way, like, that whole... Like, the sequence just in execution and everything is just, like, so good. Like, that is kind of, like, what I wanted from the original Metroid Prime. What I feel like was a bit lacking is that as awesome as that final battle is, you do the Essence fight, it's, like, pretty easy. Then it's like, oh, things are exploding, you gotta get out of here. And then it's just a cutscene of Samus, like, leaving. Like, I like the fact that you beat... the Emperor, and then you do have to escape, and then you get like stopped and have to do this boss fight and everything. I didn't necessarily need another boss fight, but just some kind of escape, some kind of like that final moment of the game,
like a bit of rush.
But I think like I've posted about this before in like Twitter or Discord or whatever, but that moment, like when you beat Dark Samus. And she's, like, slumped to the ground and, like, just reaches towards Samus. And, like, there's the lights from the light suit, like, on the chest, like, just, like, shining onto her. It gives me this feeling of, like, here's this creature, that is doing nothing but, like, mindlessly seeking power, essentially. And it gained this, like, amazing power at the end of the game, but it still was not enough. It just cannot match the thing that it's supposed to be like copying. Like he's still like the Metroid Prime is still just like a false copy of Samus. It's not to the same level. She has the light and it can never have the light. Like that's there's just something like weirdly powerful, and it's just like a few seconds, and they don't they obviously don't explain that or like say that out loud, but that's just like my own interpretation of like those events. It's just so simple, but it like is very impactful in a way that I think like all the Metroid Prime games or all the Metroid games in general, like they do have like these very impactful endings without having to explain like exactly what is happening. You can just kind of like feel it in the like silent emotions conveyed through like the cutscenes or gameplay or whatever. And in my opinion, like this one has like stuck with me throughout, all my life, just like playing it and thinking about that, where it is just like, Dark Samus will come back one more time in the next game, but there is this sort of patheticness to her at the end when you like beat it, and then it's just like feebly reaching towards you to and it like gives you that feeling of like, you can never be like this, you're always going to be second fiddle. And then like that's just like you end with like Dark Aether is destroyed, light is returned to Aether. The Luminoth who are still alive are like woken from their stasis. They all like bow in honor to Samus, and what does she do? Doesn't even fucking look at him and just gives them a behind the shoulder wave. Super cool.
God,
just like
damn.
Yeah, just so cool. And then we get to see her ugly Zero Suit design at the end of the game, where she like if you beat the game fast enough, she.
Let me look it up.
Yeah. It looks very bad. But that's the game, That's Metroid Prime 2. I can't. Is there anything else that we haven't talked? We talked about the music. We talked about gameplay and level design and everything like that. And then kind of talked about like the beginning and the end of the game in detail.
So
but, like,
I can't really think of anything else either. The only thing is, about Dark Samus's final fight, I also really like how you fight Dark Samus 3 and 4 in it. So, like, yeah, like, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But, okay, yeah, that isn't a great design. But, honestly, I think that's basically it. Like, Prime 2 is, like, I think... I still want to wait to say if it's my favorite until we're done with all the games. But, at least right now, I think I'm pretty positive. Metroid Prime 2 is just so fucking cool. It's so confident in itself of how, like, it's a fucking sequel. But it is a sequel that's not afraid to fucking do some cool shit because it knows it's cool. And that I think overall is the thing that I can sum up the best, is that Metroid Prime 2 is just confident. It's a fucking it's an amazing game.
Yeah.
Near perfect for me. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, that's what I was saying, where, like, it's so... Even though there is a lot about it that you can compare to the first game, everything about it feels so much more polished and so much more, like, tightly designed. But that doesn't, like, eliminate the interesting parts. They actually did put in a bunch more stuff into it that made it very interesting. And it is a game that I've gone back and forth on emotionally throughout the years, but I feel like I said, once I got into my 20s, like, every time I play the game, I just love it more. Like, I find new things to love and appreciate about it, and that's, like, the joy of playing old games and playing, like, replaying games that you've already played, is getting those fresh perspectives and being able to understand more clearly why you enjoyed something. And, like, that, it's just, like, very satisfying and freeing and everything. And I can't confidently say it's my favorite at this point, but it almost doesn't matter because I just love all three games so much that it's just, like, splitting hairs, really, to talk about, like, which one is the best, you know? It's just easier to say the first one is my favorite, just because it's like, everybody kind of, like, knows and understands that. But in reality, like, whenever I cheat, whenever I'm asked, I say Metroid Prime Trilogy. You know, that's like, that's the thing.
It's a game you can buy. I mean, come on.
I will say though, I am very excited to get to replay Prime 3 and talk about it again. But not in the next episode, because we are doing Metroid Prime Hunters instead, bitches. Yeah.
Shit.
Oh, you thought we were just doing the normal trilogy? No, we're doing Hunters. We're doing Federation Force. We gotta learn about who Silex is, baby. We gotta dig into that. We gotta figure this stuff out. We gotta theory craft for Metroid
What
Prime
happens
4.
if you give Prime to someone else, bro? Like, what happens?
Yeah. What's going... I don't know. But either way, join us next time. Yeah, we'll talk about this Nintendo Software Technologies game, Metroid Prime Hunters on the Nintendo DS. All right. See you there.